Yes, yes, yes. It is Friday night. Friday, January the 20th, 2023, 7:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. Let's hang out. Let's chat. Let's just hang out. It's Friday night. What else are you bums doing? Yes, yes. That song is just not long enough. We need it again. We need it again. What's going on, everybody? Did you watch the Scream 6 trailer? What did you think? Did you hear the news that Sean S. Cunningham is in development on a Friday the 13th reboot, potentially a sequel to the original? Oh yeah, it dropped today. Bloody Disgusting was covering it. All the Friday the 13th sources picked it up. Let's do one more time! Yes! One more time! Let's do it! Come on, you bastards! The hell's going on, you son of a bitch? Friday the 13th. Sean S. Cunningham in development on a Friday the 13th reboot, requel, sequel. This news just dropped today. I think the reason why it's probably shocking a lot of people is because, you know, Friday the 13th for years was locked up in this, you know, hell, legal hell. And now we have a television show that's coming later this year called Crystal Lake, from Brian Fuller. And then, of course, now Sean S. Cunningham is talking about doing a sequel to potentially the original Friday the 13th, because obviously that's his. But he also wants to maybe do a remake to the 85 or 86 movie House, which I fucking love that movie, by the way. He was talking about a bunch of stuff and now how it's going to work and what the legalese is around all that and the legalities and hockey mask Jason, no hockey mask Jason, adult Jason, no Jason. I don't know. I didn't dive too deep into it, but it's interesting though. I think, you know, I mean, you can't help but feel that maybe there's a bit of spite in there. So Victor Miller goes off with Brian Fuller and now they're doing Crystal Lake, and Sean Cunningham was like, well, you know what? Fuck it. Then I'm going to do my own fucking thing. Oh yeah? TV? Okay, you go have fun on your little streaming peacock. I'm going to do it on streaming on peacock. There's a peacock. There's a peacock. Okay, fine. That's fine. You go do that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make a major motion picture theatrical release sequel to my Friday the 13th of 1980. Okay. I'm not saying that it's out of spite, but the timing is interesting. And, but why not? Why not? I mean, you know, I just wish everybody could get along, you know, but that's not the way it is. That's not the way it is. These are two old grumpy men that, you know, don't give a fuck what you and I think, quite frankly. Because if they did, they wouldn't go through this. They don't care. They don't care. I mean, they love their fans, of course, but they don't care. Stop arguing. They don't care. When you're at that level and there's millions of dollars at stake, yeah. Little fans from Idaho and Toronto and Toledo, they don't care. What? Yeah, I don't care. So, interesting news that I wasn't expecting to lead with on this Q&A, because I just wanted this to be just a Friday night hangout. Just hang out and talk horror movies and, yeah, just hang out. So maybe I'll do a video on it. Probably not, though. I'll probably just kind of wait till more information comes out on it. Basically what I told you is like just basically what we know. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. Joseph Rodriguez gets the ball rolling with a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Says, have you seen Kevin Williamson's Sick yet? I have not seen it. There's a scene in it, somewhat of a plot twist, that's very similar to a scene in a certain Black Christmas fan film. Have you heard of this? No, No, I have not heard of this. I have not seen Sick. And so I don't know what the twist is you're talking about. But you know what? I mean, listen, there's only so many twists and things. And, you know, it's like when I did now, I'm not saying that you are insinuating that Kevin Williamson ripped me off. I'm not saying he didn't do that. When it comes to, like, for example, in 2019, I did a sequel concept video where it's like 2.5 hours long. Most of you've probably seen it. It's me sitting in front of my camera and I am basically talking for 2 hours. And you know me, I have no trouble doing that. And giving you what I would have done with a direct sequel to Halloween 18. This was before, I think I released it shortly after they made the announcement that they were doing a Halloween Kills and a Halloween Ends. But at the time that I started recording it, because I recorded it over like a month. So, and if you pay close attention, there's a moment in the editing where you notice that all of a sudden it looks like I have a haircut. That's because, I recorded over several weeks. And there are some things in there that were very similar to some of the things that they did in not necessarily Halloween Ends, but certainly in Halloween Kills. And I even said at the beginning of that video that any sort of similarities with my ideas or what they did are purely coincidental. When you are, especially in the horror genre, where it's very tropey, there's a lot of tropes, there's a lot of cliches, especially in the slasher subgenre. It's not hard when you look at a movie and you go, okay, let's look at this film. Let's look at the narrative. Let's look at the story. Okay, so they're going to make a sequel to it. Well, where do we go? Like many of you could pick out things and be right. So that's just, this is kind of, there's only so many directions you can go. So I haven't seen Sick, but obviously Billy's twist ending is about grandma being in the basement. So was there a grandma in the basement in this movie? I don't know. I do want to see it though, because I've heard decent things about it. I've heard decent things. But yeah, it's not hard. Like, when you watch a lot of horror movies, I mean, it's just because horror movies by design are very, people will lean into certain stereotypes or cliches or tropes and things like that. So you can find patterns, and although we're not a Hollywood movie, we're a horror movie, right? You know what I mean? And so it's not unprecedented that, there may even be things in Billy that I subconsciously took from other films. I don't think so. I wasn't thinking, the only movie I was thinking about was the original Black Christmas, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was like a moment, if somebody found something and I was like, oh yeah, maybe, I don't know, everybody borrows from each other and it's all in the execution. You can't carbon copy, but you have to, there's nothing wrong with being now I'm in no way saying that Kevin, he doesn't know who the fuck I am. He's a professional. He's written Scream. He's written I Know What You Did Last Summer. This guy's not watching Black Christmas fan films on YouTube. But the principle of what I'm talking about is in the horror space, there's a lot of tropes and cliches and, there's probably only about 10 type, or 5 to 10 type of twist endings that you can do. And you know what I mean? So yeah, that's cool though. I'll have to go, I'll have to see it and then I'll let you know what I think and see if that's the case. That's actually kind of funny. Captain Casual sends in $5 and says, Dave, I've been a fan since 2018 of me or Halloween. And I appreciate you showing Scream some love. Even if you're not quite knowledgeable in that franchise, you rock. Well, thanks, Captain Casual. I love that name, by the way. Captain Casual. Is there a Captain Formal out there? Ooh, is that your arch nemesis, Captain Formal? Captain Casual versus Captain Formal. Ladies and gentlemen, here they are. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, listen, I like the first Scream movie. And although I'm not the biggest Scream fan, And when I say I'm not the biggest Scream fan, that's not me saying I don't like Scream. That's just me saying that I'm not as neck deep into that shit as a lot of you guys are, right? Like when it comes to Halloween, like I said the other day, I have like my, PhD. When it comes to Scream, maybe I have a diploma. So I'm not as knowledgeable on the mythology or the lore. I mean, there's some things I'll say when I'm talking about Scream that somebody in the comments will be like, well, actually it's this. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, there you go. Right. I didn't know that. So but I will give credit where credit is due. Scream has yet to have their Halloween 5, has yet to have their Halloween Resurrection. They don't have that yet. They've yet to have their, ending that is like The Curse of Michael Myers, or, they've yet to, I think the first movie is the best. I think all the others are just good, fine, competently made. But they're just kind of more of the same. I'm very curious to see what they do with Scream 6 because it's taking place in New York. Now, there's nothing that I saw in the trailer that made me think that this is going in a very new direction. Other than the whole shrine thing that looks like some sort of, museum. Other than that, which is interesting, I didn't get a sense where it's like, oh, this is, and when you hear lines like, Gail saying, listen, there's been 10 of you, blah, blah, blah. And, he's like, maybe, but I'm different. I mean, he or she, maybe that will come true. And when we find out who the identity is, we'll be like, oh, so it wasn't just a line. It was, whoa, holy shit, right? But we hear those types of things all the time. So it could just be, it works well in a trailer. It's good marketing, right? It's like saying, come and watch well, it's like what we're doing with, with It's Me, Billy, right? We're, part of our marketing is the epic conclusion, right? Well, epic is very subjective, right? I mean, some people may watch it and go, oh, that was epic. And then other people may watch and go, well, I didn't really find that epic, right? Well, it's not to be taken literally, right? Because it's very subjective. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's part of marketing, right? It is the conclusion to our story, and we're wrapping it up, and we got the fucking grandmother, and we got the, the granddaughter, and we got Billy, and we got Agnes, and we got this whole thing, and you're gonna find it's the epic conclusion. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of tropes, speaking of tropes and cliches, that we will use in marketing because it works well for marketing. It's stylized and it's very effective. Now, of course, I'm not, I don't have a multi-million-dollar movie that I have to worry about, but the principles are still the same, right? The principles are still the same. So yeah, no problem, man. No problem. I mean, I don't mind talking about Scream. I don't hate Scream. I'm not like Frank Riker. Shout out to Frank, who hates Scream. I don't hate Scream, but it's just not one. It's not one of the franchises that I know the most about. It might be the least, actually. But I'm learning. And thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, Captain Casual. Jason Stillwell sends in $5. Thank you, Jason. Says, with all the stupid decisions the new owners of WB are making, does that make it less likely to get a Freddy movie at some point in the future? Well, first of all, the first part of your question is subjective, right? Now, you might feel that they are making stupid decisions. I don't feel they're making stupid decisions at all. Now, I don't pretend to know where your allegiance lies. Maybe you are a Zack Snyder fan and you are upset that Henry Cavill is no longer playing Superman and they're not moving forward with the Snyderverse and all that kind of stuff. I get all that. Okay, I'm not a big superhero guy. I'm not neck deep into it, so I don't have a dog in the fight. So when I look at this objectively, the Snyderverse wasn't making money. Now, it was making money, but I'm talking about money. You know what I mean? And it was just it could never compete and achieve the levels of success that it should have been achieving, right? I'm not saying the movies are bad. I actually kind of like Batman v Superman. But I also don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not emotionally attached to the lore and the mythology. I didn't grow up reading the comics and getting into all that kind of stuff. So I'm just a casual, fucking viewer when it comes to a lot of these superhero films. So I realize that ripping the Band-Aid off is very hard, especially when you're emotionally attached to these characters. And I agree that Henry Cavill is a fantastic Superman. He's fantastic. He's got the look, the build, the suave, the charisma. He's great. I loved him. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of Man of Steel, I liked him in the role. I understand. I understand and empathize with those that are like, It needed to be done. From a business perspective, it needed to be done. And this is show business. And it needed to be done. It was in my opinion, it was the right decision to make. Because, people were just not going out and supporting these movies. It just wasn't happening, and they were underperforming and not achieving the levels of success that they should have been achieving. So I actually agree with that. Now, in regards to Freddy, Warner Brothers doesn't have the rights to Freddy right now. I don't think so anyway. A few years ago, the rights to A Nightmare on Elm Street went back to the Craven estate. And so the Craven estate has them. So whoever they want to get into negotiations with, whatever studio they want to, get into negotiations with, whether that's one of the major players like a Warner Brothers or a Universal, or whether that's somebody smaller like, an A24 or something to that degree, has yet to be seen. I don't know what they're waiting on. I don't know if it's just they're kind of waiting, or there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, because always keep in mind that when news hits, the press, depending on what it is, generally speaking, movie news, like, when we find out that somebody has been cast in a movie, well, we're just finding out, but chances are they signed on the dotted line like a month ago, right? Or when a director is hired, usually, again, it all depends. There's different variables, but generally, when we read about something, it's usually well after the fact. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. I have no idea. So no, I don't think it has anything to do, because James Gunn and what's his face there are obviously, that's DC, so they have nothing to do with Freddy. And Warner Brothers doesn't have the rights now. So it's kind of like up in the air. I don't know who's going to get it. I know Elijah Wood. Yeah, that Elijah Wood. He's got, I think, his own little production company or something. And I remember a few years ago, he was interested in putting his hands on it, which is weird to me, but okay. I don't know if anything came of that. I don't know if they had actual talks with the Craven estate and it just fell through. I have no idea, but interesting. So those are my thoughts. Let's see here. Cody, just curious on why Danita was hidden in the chat. Danita's a great contributor. Was there something that I missed? Danita, if you're still watching, we'll get that sorted out. You don't have to tell me here publicly, Cody. You can shoot me a DM. I always like to make sure, especially when it's from great contributors, if there was something maybe that I missed that, I just want to make sure that everything is okay. Josh McKenna sends in a very generous super chat of $19.99. Thank you, Josh. And says, do you know about the Daryl Brooks trial? Cliff Notes version, but he got into a fight with his girlfriend. Engaged, he ran over 60 plus people at a Christmas parade. He killed 6 people, including a child. He was sentenced to life. No, I'm not familiar with this. That is awful, dude. How long ago was this? I mean, maybe I have heard about this, but maybe it's just kind of left my memory. Maybe like if I saw like his face or I read it, I was like, oh yeah. You know, I kind of, is this recent? Was this just this past Christmas, or was this like decades ago or something? I imagine it was a little while ago, because if it had just happened this past Christmas, I don't think he would have had his trial already. You know, I mean, it could be years. Fascinating. No, that sounds crazy, dude. I do like a lot of that true crime shit though. Like I love watching, like, you know, Dateline and Dateline and like 48 Hours and 2020 and one of the ones that I went down, and I still tune in to check every now and then to see if there's anything new, and there just isn't. I've exhausted everything, and it would take me way too long to talk about it here in any great detail. It is so convoluted and so saturated with so many different angles and stories and suspects and characters, just insane. But that is the Maura Murray case. If you are a true crime nut, and I'm not a true crime nut, but if you like that kind of stuff, and you've never heard of the Maura Murray case, do yourself a favor on this Friday night after you're done watching me. Grab some popcorn, grab some snacks, and YouTube Maura Murray. And good luck. It's weird as fuck. It's weird as fuck. It's a disappearance. And if you do know about it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, so I like that kind of shit, man. But no, I have not heard of this Darryl Brooks trial. Sorry about that, Josh. But thank you very much for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Static sends in $2. Thank you, Static. And says, Freddy versus Jason is 20 years old. Is it 20 years old already? 2003? Yeah. Yeah, I was 24 when it came out. I'm not, you know, again, I can watch it, but I haven't seen it probably since it came out. Well, that's not true. I think I saw it, because didn't Tony and I do it for a Two Dudes? Did we do Freddy versus Jason for a Two Dudes? I think we did. Maybe we didn't. Anyway, it hasn't been that, maybe it's, yeah. Anyways, I'm not big on the versus stuff. I think it's kind of corny, but I know a lot of people like that kind of shit. Nate A sends in $5. Thanks, Nate. Said, did you hear about the confirmation of the Michael Jackson biopic? Should be a trilogy or something. This is going to be muddy waters. Yeah. No. I kind of heard a little bit about it. Some rumblings, but yeah, it's a very difficult biopic to do, because I feel like you're going to need, like, as you said, a trilogy, or, which you don't usually see with biopics, or what you may get is sometimes, if it is a controversial figure, and certainly Michael Jackson was, the filmmakers may play it safe and take a section of his life and tell that story. And that's the story that they tell. And then somebody else might take a section of his life and get into the, more controversial stuff. I've made it no secret where I lie on that. I do feel that Michael Jackson was guilty. I know he was acquitted in a court of law. I understand that. And according to the law, he was innocent. I totally get that. But innocent people are acquitted all the time. OJ, but I do tend to fall on that. Obviously I wasn't there. I don't know for certain, but it's what I've read, the interviews that I've heard. I do think there was something strange going on. Does that make him any less of a phenomenal entertainer? Nope. No. I know it's hard for some people to look at that because I've said on this channel many times, two things can be true at the same time. Kevin Spacey can be a scud-sucking piece of shit and a phenomenal actor. Both of those things are true. Now, because Michael Jackson was acquitted in a court of law. According to the law, he was innocent. Okay. But is it possible that Michael Jackson could have been a scuzz-sucking you-know-what and a phenomenal entertainer, one of the greatest we've ever seen in the history of music? Yes. Yes, of course. Two things can be true at the same time. But I agree with you, right? No matter which aisle you fall, what side of the aisle you fall, it is a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. It's very touchy. I mean, even just the mere mention of me saying, I kind of feel is so triggering for some people. It's like, well, calm down, relax. It's, I'm allowed to feel that way. It's how I feel. If you feel differently, that's fine. That's fair. It's a very, very touchy subject. But yeah, I don't know which way they're going to go with it or what they're going to do. But I'll be watching with curious eyes to see how they're going to tackle it, because you can't, at least you shouldn't, if you're going to do a Michael Jackson biopic and go all in, you got to go all in. You have to go all in. You can't sugarcoat anything on both sides. Both sides. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough. I would not want to be a part of that. Jason Stillwell follows up with $5. Thanks, Jason. Says, I didn't care about Superman. I just wanted to see Michael Keaton as Batman again. Okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. I understand that. And maybe you still will in some way. I'm not really sure. But overall, I do think that it was the right thing to do. And listen, if you are a Zack Snyder fan, then he's making some shit right now for Netflix. So go support him. Follow him, tweet him, tell him how much you love him. But the Snyderverse is dead, and it should be dead. It should be. It wasn't living up to its potential. They had 10 years. And it doesn't mean they didn't have moments of success, but it just didn't. It just didn't, but I understand. I get it. Let's see here. I see. Okay. Cody says, I'm a klutz. To the Danita thing. Okay, I guess you were, that's okay. It happens. I just, I just was like, Danita, what did you say? Danita Brown got timed out? What? Danita is amazing. She's so respectful and such a great contributor. And I was like, what's going on? It happens. Totally. Okay. Whew. I thought Danita was losing it there for a minute. Thanks, Cody. Appreciate that. All right, just want to make sure I get these super chats here. Joanna from Canada. Hey, Joanna from Canada. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you in here. Sends in a very generous super chat of 20 Canuck dollars. Thank you. Says, "What's up, Dave? I think this Ghostface is already different because this was the first time he killed in public, right? He did not care that there was an audience and probably store camera. I could be wrong." Well, listen, as somebody who has a diploma in Scream knowledge and not a PhD, I don't know. You could be right. So I will pass it over to my PhDs in the Scream audience. Is this the first time that he's ever killed in a public setting with people around, like with cameras or things like that? Or did we see that in Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I can't quite remember. I don't know. That's a very good question. Well, look, I mean, I uploaded a video yesterday where I was, pontificate. I was speculating that I think maybe the Ghostface in this movie is actually the offspring of Stu. I even made a tweet about that. Some people like the idea. Some people don't like the idea. Oh, come on. They just did that. And it's like, oh, I love horror fans are great, right? Oh, come on. They just did that. But they'll watch like 500 Scream movies. Yes, that is true. They just did that with Billy and Sam. But I do think it's possible that this is an offspring, or maybe it's not Stu's kid. Maybe Billy's, maybe unbeknownst to Sam, the woman that Billy got pregnant ended up having twins. And one was a boy, one was a girl, right? They were born at the same time. That can happen. And so, you know, I mean, those are cool ideas, right? So it's not Stu's kid. It's actually it's Billy's son. You know, so it's like, oh my God, like, you know, I was, you know, and I know there's people that don't like that. No, I don't like that. Okay, we'll just watch the same fucking thing over again. But I like those when they're done, those kinds of things, when they're done really well, can be very effective, But do I think that's like actually what they're doing? Probably not. It's a Scream movie. Probably not. It's probably going to end up being Kirby. You know, it's like, oh, okay. It's all right. You know, I don't know. But and then I speculated that, you know, Jenna Ortega, maybe she's in on it, you know, and she probably not. You know, I don't know if they would want to take those kinds of risks or if the studio would let them take those kinds of risks. But those are the kinds of risks that like at this point in my life and at this point in the Scream franchise, that gets me excited. I know that we just saw Billy, you know, oh, he had a daughter, holy shit. And I get that. But that was some of the more interesting stuff in that Scream movie. In Scream 5, outside of Dewey's death, because that was like, oh my God, you know, but outside of that, one of the more interesting things about that story was, oh, so Billy had a fucking kid, no way. And then, oh, here she is. It's the Sam girl, cool. Oh, she's seeing like delusions of her father and she's got like these dark tendencies. And that's the best thing about that movie. And Jenna Ortega. But I'm just saying, like, that was interesting. Everything else was just a Scream movie, right? But that was like, oh, that's like at this point, you've got to start taking some risks and you know, and doing something. So I'm hoping that the Ghostface in Scream 6 isn't Kirby because it's obvious. You know, and it isn't the cop. I know people are like, oh, it's probably Kirby because she's an FBI agent or something. And who else would have access to all those you know, items and to make that shrine? Yes, exactly. I think that's the logical thing to think. And I think that's what they want you to think. But if it actually ends up being Kirby, I'm going to be like, oh, really? And I know some people might say, no, but it's different because we've never had a survivor be a ghost. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, but I'm like, nah. Let's get crazy, but not too crazy. Not, you know, nuts. We're like, not, you know, not Jason Goes to Hell crazy. I don't know, but I still think it would be cool if it was Stu's son, you know, and the juxtaposition of that, the son and the daughter and both of their fathers were the original killers. And, you know, again, I don't know how you'd make it make sense and justify it where the audience goes, okay, I believe it. I'm buying into it. That's a tall order. That's tough. But if you can, that's interesting dynamic. It's an interesting dynamic. To me, I find that more interesting than just it being Kirby. But that's me. Thank you, Joanna. I really appreciate that. Let me see here. Happy Sanjo sends in $5. Thank you, Happy. Says, you ever seen Frequency 2000? Yes. Jim Caviezel, Dennis Quaid. I'm a fan of it. Underrated thriller. Could not agree more. I saw that movie in the movie theater when it came out. Me and my friend Evan Malamud. He's Jewish. I actually think, I think it's actually pronounced Malamed, if I'm not mistaken. Evan, if you're watching. But yeah, Evan Malamud. He was one of my best friends. Still is. In high school. And in the summer of 2000, we were already well out of high school. I had just finished my second year of college. And it was the summer of 2000. And we went to the movie theater. We were looking for a movie to watch. We're like, Frequency. We both like, you know, Dennis Quaid. Jim Caviezel was relatively unknown, at least to us at that time, but we knew who Dennis Quaid was. We were like, let's go watch this movie. So we watched it, loved it, fucking loved it. And I really liked that song. I'm not a country guy, but that song by Garth Brooks at the end of the movie when the credits are rolling, or I guess it begins when they're playing baseball at the end. Great song. That's a great movie. If anybody hasn't seen Frequency with Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel, it's a great like time travel sort of different. It's a fantastic movie and has a lot of heart. Has a lot of heart. Watch it. So thank you, Happy. Yes, I have seen it, and I actually really like that movie. I should watch that again soon. It's a good movie. All right. Amaducia sends in $10. Thanks, buddy. Says, hi, Dave. I know Halloween is just a movie, but the films are important to me. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. They're important to me, too. How are you dealing with the letdown of the DGG trilogy? I can't seem to shake the letdown events. Oh, I'm doing fine. I don't care. I think it's important that, you know, I think I don't know how old you are, and I say that with all due respect. Maybe you're my age, but if you're a lot younger than me, maybe this is part of why you feel the way you do. I've been burned many times. You know, I've been down this road many times. When I first jumped on here, now, again, I've had my channel since 2006, but it wasn't until 2017 that I started jumping on and doing this kind of thing and talking about Halloween. And if you follow me for any length of time, my OGs in the chat will know this. I said, before even the release of Halloween 18, I mean, I could go back and find clips of me saying this, saying, listen, you may be able to get one out of this, maybe two out of this. But I said that the more, you guys remember, the more sequels you make, it's inevitable that eventually they're going to be dog shit. I said that. And of course, it depends what we're talking about, right? I mean, you know, you could look at all of the Marvel, you know, the MCU, the 22 films or whatever it is leading up to Endgame. I mean, you could look at that as they are sequels, but they're telling a story. It's different, right? Like, really, I'm talking about, you know, the slasher subgenre of horror sequels is what I'm talking about. And it's true. The more sequels you make, it's inevitable that eventually there will be that one where you go, there it is. You know, because they run out of ideas and the weird and sensational seeps in because it's just, they're beating a dead horse and all that. And I said that. I used to say that on the channel all the time. So because it's just the way it goes. And I've been burned a lot. So am I disappointed that I didn't like the David Gordon Green trilogy more? Yes, I am. But am I surprised? Not really. Not really. I've been through this with, you know, Halloween 5 and 6. I went through this with Halloween Resurrection. I went through this with Rob Zombie's Halloweens. I mean, you know, I was ready. I liked Halloween 18 well enough. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was a very good Halloween movie. I thought it was a good modern day slasher film, but certainly now in retrospect, comparing it to the other two, I think it's probably the best Halloween movie in the trilogy. And I think it's the best movie in the trilogy. But there were creative decisions that were made that I found. I understand that you want to do something different. You want to, you know, all that, but it didn't land with me. It landed with some. There's lots of people that love it. I mean, look at Wolfman's Got Nards, right? He loves Halloween Ends, thinks it's fantastic. Look at Drum Dumps, thinks it's fantastic, right? It's resonating with, you know, a lot of people. It's not resonating with others. And so I'm disappointed, yes, but I've been down this road many times over the last 30 years. And so I'm just like, you know, that's too bad. All right, on with the day. You know, it's kind of how I am now, right? You know, so hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Just keep watching all the ones you love. That's what you need to do. All right, Maca5250 Outlaw Gaming sends in £1 and 79 pence and says, hi, Dave, long time. You see Cobra Kai ending with season 6. Yeah, I just read that on Twitter earlier today. I think that's the right thing to do. I think, you know, you want to go out on a high note. Now, I mean, we don't know if they're going to go out on a high note with season 6, but all the seasons have been strong. You can look at some seasons as being, you know, stronger than others, perhaps. Maybe by, you know, an episode by episode basis, maybe. But there hasn't been a shitty season, right? Like, I don't think there's been like, oh, there hasn't been that. And that's impressive, especially with the subject matter that they're dealing with and all of the choreography and the fighting and the campiness. You know, I mean, 5 seasons. I mean, that's impressive. But the writers were very well prepared. They had the trajectory of where they wanted to go. They knew what they wanted to do. They had it laid out. They had a plan. And it worked. It worked for them. And it's a great show. I mean, I'm not even the biggest Karate Kid fan. I mean, as a young boy growing up through the 1980s, I watched it. I liked it. But it was never like a favorite movie of mine. Tony Michael, who I do the Two Dudes show with, it's his favorite movie of all time. Like his favorite movie of all time, period. Number 1. I like it. I do. But it wouldn't be like a top 10 or even a top 20 for me. But even I love the show. I think it's fantastic. It's so good. It treats the source material with such respect that even a casual fan like myself can appreciate and glob onto and get, right? But yes, I do think it's the right thing to do. There's only so much, I mean, because of the kind of show it is, it hasn't jumped the shark yet, but it's always riding that line because of the sort of campy, over the top kind of show that it is. Hopefully they can complete season 6 without jumping the shark or nuking the fridge, or whatever, example you want to use. But I did see, and I think it's the right move to make. So I'm looking forward to seeing season 6. Static follows up with another $2, says, it's time to revisit Twilight 2008. It's actually good. I've seen it. I saw it when it came out. There was Twilight. There was Breaking Dawn. What was the second one called? I think I've seen the second one. Listen, they're not, I mean, obviously they're not geared towards men or males. They are basically romance fantasy novels for teenagers. I mean, that's what they were, but hugely successful. And Robert Pattinson, obviously, it's unfortunate that he, gets but that's just, I mean, that doesn't surprise me that you have the internet looking at Robert Pattinson as just Twilight boy. These are naive, ignorant fools, really, on the internet. And I say that, I don't say that to, trigger anybody or offend anybody. I say that because you can just get it in what people, you can pick up on people that understand, an actor's job. And that just because somebody was in Twilight doesn't mean that, they are Edward from Twilight. He was playing, a role, right? And I think the thing that frustrates me as somebody that likes details and likes to talk and is just, and you're never going to win. It's just, this is just the reality of the internet, is just the groupthink, right? The confirmation bias, the people saying that, something will be covered, and then you'll see the comments of just people, they're just recycling. I mean, I don't know how many times I can see a post about Avatar, and sure enough, you look in the comments and then Pocahontas in space, Pocahontas in space, Pocahontas in space. It's like, yeah, I mean, can you think? Yes, okay, but can you think of something else? No, Pocahontas in space. It's like, okay, all right, yeah. I mean, you think you get tired of mentioning that, but so you saw that with Edward when he was cast as Batman, and Twilight boy, is he going to sparkle and all that kind of stuff? And it's funny. I mean, it is funny, but there comes a time where it's like, yeah, but it's important that I think. And again, not every, there's degrees of fans, right? And I understand that. So I want to also say that I get that. Not everybody is hardcore. Not everybody's deep into it, right? Not everybody is thinking about movies every day and watching movies every day and scrolling on the sites every day. A lot of these people will like certain pages or whatever casually because who doesn't like movies? But they're not, scrutinizing and all that kind of stuff and like we are. So I do understand that. But I thought, yeah, the first Twilight film, I remember enjoying for what it was. Like, I'm watching it within its context, right? I mean, I didn't go into it. I think I saw it at home and I watched it because it was all the rage, right? I mean, it was all like this rage. I'm like, what the fuck is this Twilight? You know, so I watched it and and I knew what I was getting into. I mean, I knew what it was. I wasn't under any, delusions that I was watching some macho action movie or something. I mean, I knew what I was getting into, but I was curious, I wanted to check out what all the rage was. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, it was all right. Like, I mean, like I get it. Like if I was a 14-year-old girl, I'd be fucking all over this shit. Like I totally get the appeal. I see it. I get it. I understand it. And yeah, I mean, it's not for me. I'm not going to go out and buy it, and I'm not going to start, getting crazy on it because it doesn't appeal to me, to who I am as a person, obviously, but that's because it's not for me. But absolutely, I mean, I can absolutely see the appeal for sure. And yeah, I thought it was fine. All right, I think I got all the super chats, if I'm not mistaken. Let me get a few non-super ones here. Max Powell says, have you ever thought about making a video on movies, TV shows that scared you as a kid? They don't have to be horror movies. That's a good one. I sort of have in a roundabout way over the years that I've been doing this. But I know what you're saying, like specifically dedicate a video to it as movies that scared me as a kid. Well, there weren't too many movies that scared me as a kid. And when you say they don't have to be horror movies, well, I mean, there were no action movies that scared me as a kid. There were no comedies or, fantasy films or anything like that. I never got scared from movies as a kid. I never did. I can't think of a movie, like I've never had a nightmare about Freddy or Jason or Michael or any movie. I've never had a nightmare about a movie I've watched. Not that I can remember. Not that I can, we dream every night, so they say, so maybe I did and I just didn't remember it. I don't know. But I've never had a nightmare about a movie that I've watched. Or, I just haven't. My nightmares are usually always about personal things in my life, that happen to be happening to me at that time. Now, when I was a kid, one of my reoccurring dreams that I used to have, and funny enough, when I left this house, I never had this dream ever again. But so growing up as a young boy through the 1980s, I have older siblings that were teenagers in the 80s. I was, like I said, I was like 7, 8, 9. And my siblings were like, 19, 17, 20. And I think it was my brother Bob, if I'm not mistaken. He was, I don't know if he still is, but he was a huge fan, or he was a fan, I don't know if he's a huge fan, but he was a fan of Iron Maiden. And the mascot for Iron Maiden, I think I've talked about this. The mascot for Iron Maiden is Eddie, right? The monster. Now there's different variations of him. And certainly now, they have so many albums, so many t-shirts and things like that. But if you go back to, I forget what the name of their album was, but the album where Eddie is on the cover and he's kind of like this, he's doing this kind of thing. He's got the long white hair and he's got blue pants on with a white shirt and he's looking to the side. I don't know what the name of that album is, but as a young boy, I was enamored with that. Like I just thought the art was so cool and that Eddie was, wow, Eddie. Well, I remember as a kid having a dream about Eddie. He's a monster, right? And I remember the dream was I'd wake up and I would walk out of my bedroom and I'd walk to the left. I'd walk into the kitchen and then I would turn left again and I'd be at the top of the basement stairs. And then all of a sudden my legs would, like I had no control over my legs. And I would suddenly start running down the basement stairs. And as I got to the basement, it was a finished basement. Well, it was a finished basement. There was a room in the distance where my brothers slept. And it was a big room. And they slept at the back, and the front of the room, there was like a hockey net where we could play hockey. It was really cool. Such a Canadian thing. But anyway, my legs, like I had no control of my legs, and I was running towards the darkness of this doorway of their room. And as I got close, Eddie in the white shirt with the blue pants, and he came out of the darkness like that. And then I would wake up. And that was the only reoccurring dream I've ever had in my life. that I can remember. And as soon as I moved away from that house in 1988, I never had that dream ever again. The other dream I had of Eddie, while I lived there, was a different version of him. And I know which one it was. He's under like a street light, I think, like an album, again, a 1980s album. I think he's under a street light or whatever. It was that version of him. And I remember rolling over, again, I'm like, I don't know, 7, I'm rolling over, and beside my nightstand is Eddie, that version of Eddie, like this. And I would wake up, Now, I don't think that was a reoccurring dream, but my sister Jill remembers me crying and, Eddie, maybe I was younger. Maybe I was like 5. I don't know. But she would come into the room and oh, Dave, it's okay, whatever. So like those are the kind of nightmares that I had as a kid. And I watched Freddy all the time. I watched Jason all the time. I was watching all those horror movies in the 80s. No. Loved it. I never got scared by a horror movie, like actually scared. My scare was like, oh, this is so cool. This is creepy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So it's no wonder that it's my favorite genre. And it's no wonder that I would love to have a career making movies where I get to dabble in that, like really, dabble in mood and atmosphere and tension and suspense and all that. And really, I mean, I love it. So yeah, great question though. But you know what? I mean, maybe might do something like that. Okay. Oh, Darren. Darren is on it. He put a link to I bet you it's the Iron Maiden cover. Let me see here. Yes. That is it. What is it? The Number of the Beast. The Number of the Beast is the name of the album. Yes, that is it. That's it. And I loved it. It's so funny. I thought he was the other direction. That's so cool. Like he looks so fucking cool. This has got to be, and I was never, I don't not like them or anything. I've heard a couple of their songs and they're fine. But I never got into Iron Maiden. As a kid, I got into AC/DC huge. I love AC/DC. But for whatever reason, I never got into Iron Maiden, but I loved Eddie. He's still to this day such a fucking cool monster. Like I would love to see Eddie come to life. I'm sure there are. There's got to be like an animation or a cartoon or something with Eddie that's actually like, it's fucking amazing. Yeah, and I remember the devil at the front there like this. Yeah, he's doing this. Yeah, I remember that. That's so cool. Thanks, Darren, for bringing that up. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I'll save it as an image. And then I'll quickly just, bring it up for the viewers here. I'm sure people know what it is. But this is what I am talking about. One sec. There it is. Oh, it's a little small. That is the album cover I was talking about. So, yeah. That's it. That's the man of my dreams. And when I was a kid, like when I was, I think in the early 90s, when I was in Florida, we were at this flea market and I found an Eddie t-shirt and I still have it. And because I'm not a very big guy, it still fits. I was like 13 when I got it, but it still fits. And it's in, I don't wear it because it's like the whole shirt. His face is up here like this. And then on the back, it's like this, it's got this, like this hatchet in his hand with blood all down the back and everything. It's not a shirt you wear out. You know what I mean? I mean, when you're 12, it's like, oh, it's so cool. But when, you're 43 and you're walking around with that, I mean, maybe to an Iron Maiden concert, yes, that would make sense. But, just kind of wear out to the zoo or something, should I just spat all over the place? You'd fucking scare the animals. But I bought it because I loved it. And I've never had a dream of Eddie ever again. I think me and Eddie are we're okay. We made up. But yeah. All right. I don't think I missed any super chats because I think you guys would let me know if I did, but I don't think I did. So let's go back here. What's this? The Slaughtered Lamb says, as I said yesterday, Dave's almost as tall as Jen Ortega. Is that in the Phantasm episode? I still have to watch that. All right. Well, I'm going to watch it. It's true. Well, I mean, I'm 4'8". I'm 4'8". And 108 pounds. So Jen Ortega would tower over me. Are you kidding? Ortega is a giant compared to me. That's so funny. All right, let me see. Next Gen Studio says, Ends needed more Nicolas Cage mask. It also needed to kill off Laurie at the beginning. It also needed to have Michael cry. It also needed clown music, another cliffhanger ending in Men in Black. You mean like Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers? Maybe it did. Viva la France says, Dave, are you familiar with the Spanish director Pedro Almodovar? Almodovar? Is that how you pronounce that? Almodovar? I've recently watched a couple of his movies and I think he's great. I am not familiar with the name. It's possible I've seen some of his movies. Obviously I don't know every director on the planet. I will often watch a horror movie and not pay attention to who directed it. Especially if it's one that really resonates with me, I will. But if it's one that's like, whatever, then I probably won't. I haven't, not off the top of my head anyway. Scared Straight Production says, Dave, do you find it weird the Halloween films are only good as standalones or anniversary films? H1, 4, H2O, 2018, anything in between, people tend to like a lot less. Well, you know what? I think in a lot of regards, you can almost measure that as to why. It's not an exact science, but you can actually point to why that is probably the case. So with Halloween 1, obviously there hadn't been one. So, okay, it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting. With Halloween 4, there was a 7-year gap. A 7-year gap without Michael Myers. So there was excitement built around that, right? And because there was a lot of breathing room, the filmmakers, although the writer did not have a lot of time because of the looming writer's strike. I think Halloween 4 was written in like 11 days. But, there was a chance to sort of recalibrate, look at what's come before, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what are the mistakes we don't want to make again, what's the pulse of the franchise at that time. So it doesn't surprise me that, another first one out of the gate in a long time ends up being not bad, pretty good, and then you could look at, even though I'm not I'm not a fan of H2O. I don't think H2O is that great. I know it has its fans. I know it's the fan favorite. I understand it, but I'm not really a fan of it. But look what it did, right? Millions of dollars. I think it made like 75 million domestic, if I'm not mistaken. Huge total. One of the big movies of 1998 in horror. Now there wasn't a big gap. There was only 3 years between 6 and H2O, but it was a recalibration. It was a reset. Right? Okay, what are we looking at here? Okay, let's look at the series, what worked, what didn't work. Okay, 4, 5, 6 don't exist. Well, 1 and 2 do, which are, and again, so it's almost like, you're restructuring again, right? And then you look at 18 And 18 falls into that line with there's a big gap. Okay, let's just take a time. Let's look at the time. What worked, what didn't work. So I think that's part of it. Again, it's not an exact science. You absolutely could make a shitty movie right out of the gate. Of course you could. But is it weird that, 1, 4, H2O18 are liked? No, I don't think so. And I think part of that reason could be because of the recalibration and reset that you have to do. Because then you're looking at the series objectively and trying not to make the same mistakes again, and delivering something safe and familiar. That's something you have to look at too, right? Even though 4 is a direct sequel, 4 is from, the way it was structured, the way it was lit, things like that. There's a familiarity there, right? Something you don't see in 5. You look at H2O. Now, H2O doesn't look like Halloween, doesn't feel like Halloween, doesn't smell like Halloween, doesn't taste like Halloween, doesn't even shit like Halloween. I'm not really a fan of it, but I understand Laurie Strode. She's back, right? 18, same thing. There are things you can point to as to reasons why. For sure. Okay, I think I got that. What do we got here? Butter Cookie says, is Dave really that short? 4'8"? No. Oh, David Irwin says, it's okay, Dave, I'm 5'8" too. Yes, I am 5'8". Yeah, no, I'm not tall. I am. Is Dave really that short? You make it sound like I said I was 4'3". But then again, if you're 6'2", I mean, Yeah, no, I'm not a tall guy, but nobody in my family's tall. I think my dad was like 5'8" or 9". My mother was only 5 foot. My mother, yeah. I think Jenna Ortega, what is she? I think she's 5 foot, 5'1" or something like that. Something like that. Harry Hagan sends in $5 and says, not talking about Never Hike Alone, Dylan Zoo Nightmare, or It's Me, Billy, etc., but other horror fan films are not hitting those big view numbers like they used to. Do you think it's dying out? Well, it would depend. It would depend on what you're talking about. When it comes to fan films, like I've said many times on this channel, especially when it comes to fan films, if you have an IP that is beloved, that is very popular, if you deliver something, it will get views in its sleep, right? I don't watch, I'll be honest with you, I haven't really watched any other horror fan films. I've watched some, obviously, but I don't go on and seek them out. But I do know that the Halloween fan film market, we'll call it, is saturated. It's absolutely saturated, with some, pretty good, some not bad, some, not very good. There's different quality for every leaf on a tree. And, but even what would be considered bad Halloween fan films, right? So what would be considered bad, right? Well, it all depends, right? Because it's relative. If it's just a bunch of kids in their backyard farting around, you can't judge that in the same way that you would judge something else, right? But take that, right? Take like even a fan film, kids farting around with their camera, the bad acting, the bad lighting, the bad camera angles, all that kind of stuff. Even those Halloween fan films, not all of them, it depends on how many, but some of them I've seen, even they'll have 100,000 views, 50,000 views, 200,000 views. Well, they're not getting those views because, the movie's a fantastic piece of cinema. They're getting it because it's Halloween, right? It's the way it goes. We cannot underestimate the power of the love for a franchise. And of course, it's not like you can get the view back. As soon as you watch for 30 seconds or whatever, it counts as a view. You don't even have to watch the whole thing and your view still counts. As long as you watch for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it is, that will count. And if you stop, if you don't watch the whole movie, it doesn't take it away. You know what I mean? It's kind of like box office, right? You pay for your ticket, you go, you could leave, 5 minutes in, but you're $14 still goes. You know, you can't go back to the box. I mean, listen, have there been examples where people have gotten their money back? Sure. But it's not because they didn't like the movie. It's because there was a problem with the projector, or, you know, the screen cracked, or it's usually on the cinema's end. You know, you can't leave and be like, fucking movie sucked, I want my money. I remember when I worked at you can't do that, because there's no guarantees that you're going to like the movie. That's not part of the experience. We guarantee you're going to like it. You can't do that. And nor should you be able to do that. I remember when I worked at a video store, a guy came in wanting his money back because he didn't like the movie. And I said, well, I can't do that. You give me my money. I said, no, I said, we don't guarantee that you're going to like the movie. He's a fucking idiot. But anyway, do I think it's dying out? I think fan films are, I think there's always, there's always been a stigma around fan films, and rightly so. That stigma should exist because the vast majority of fan films are made by people that are not filmmakers, right? That doesn't mean that they may not, you know, be film fans, or they may not produce something that's not bad, you know, relative to the equipment they were using or the friends they had, or, you know, whatever the case is. The vast majority of fan films, not all, but the vast majority of them are true fan films, right? Are true fan films, you know, because that's what a fan film is. It's made by a fan, not a filmmaker, a fan, right? So fan films, in some ways, you could make the argument, say, well, fan films should look like home movies, because that's what a fan film is. It shouldn't look like Hollywood. But, and thanks in part of, you know, to Vincent DeSanti, of course, certainly for horror. I mean, obviously there were pretty good looking fan films in other genres before Never Hike Alone, but certainly in the horror space, he brought a level of production value and quality that obviously he's continuing to do with his Never Hike Alone series, that we did with Billy and hope to do with Billy too. And I say hope because we still need to raise the money. If we raise the money, then, you know, we will. Dylan's New Nightmare, all that kind of stuff. But again, that's different. That's a different category, right? I mean, they're not really fan films. They're indie films. And I've said that 1,000 times. So do I think the fan film craze is dying a bit? I think so, in part because there's so much of it, and so much of it is just, you know, shit, right? And maybe that's because people's expectations are too high. I mean, certainly when it comes to like myself and Vince and Cecil, we're not the dominant force here. I mean, we're not, you know, the quality that you get in like a Never Hike Alone or in It's Me, Billy is not the norm. That's not the norm, but there's reasons for that, right? There's reasons for it. So it's very tough I mean, it's easier for Vince because it's Friday the 13th. He's very talented. I'm not taking any away from his talent. He's very talented, but it's Friday the 13th. It's Jason. So that already puts you ahead 50%, right? So it's easier for him to get eyeballs on his stuff. And if he can produce quality, which he's been doing, then that just elevates it more. For us, it's a bit of an uphill battle because people only really seem to care about Black Christmas at Christmas time. So it's a bit of an uphill battle for us, but we did it with chapter 1 and we're going to do it again with chapter 2. So, but yeah, you know, I see what you're saying. I think you're just seeing a separation. You know, you're seeing fan films that are fan films because we don't own the IP. Yes, but they're actually indie horror movies, you know. That's why they look like real films, because they are. And then you have true fan films, like real fan films that are made by, you know, not filmmakers. They're made by, you know, Steve, Bob, and his Uncle Joe farting around in their backyard. And then you have those. And there's 98% of the fan films are those. So I can see, because it's so saturated, I can see people getting tired of it. For sure. I can see it. Thanks, Harry. Appreciate it. Super chat comes in from Static. Zzz. Sends in $2, says, did you notice your Freddy pick is viral on YouTube? What is viral on YouTube? I know there's been a bunch of channels that were talking about it, which is great. I did hear from Cecil yesterday that one of the, like a very first early assembly edit of Dylan's New Nightmare is he's seen a very early assembly edit and says it looks really good. I have no more info beyond that. I mean, obviously the color hasn't been done. The sound hasn't been done. It's still got a ways to go. But he likes what he sees. He says, so far, so good. I'm liking what I'm seeing. So that's kind of exciting. That's the first news I've heard since before Christmas. So that's cool. I know a lot of people were talking about it, which is great. I'm really glad to see that. I hope people like what they see of me and what I do. Now, again, like I always say, it's a short film. It's not a feature film. It's not like I'm going to be on screen every 5 seconds, right? But hopefully people will like what they see, that then will be able to raise the money again to fund the next one. Because that's what Cecil wants to do, right? He wants to, he's got like an idea to make this like a 4 or 5 episode arc. And then of course, if you put them together, you have like a, 2.5 hour movie. That's what he wants to do. So that's cool. That's cool. And I'm totally down for it. If people love it and they want to see more, I'm totally down for it. Miko is down for it. Vince is down for it. Everybody's down for it to come back. We had such a great time getting to know everybody. And it was a lot of fun, a great bunch of talented people. I'm a firm believer that, yes, you have to have talent, obviously. And I think we all do. And I think we all complement each other very well. But they're good people, and surrounding yourself with the right people is half the battle, and I had such a great time that week, with everybody from Vince to Cecil to Nora to Robert to everybody that was involved. I had such a great time with. But I don't know what is viral on YouTube. What, like 1 million views or something? I have no idea what viral is. What's the benchmark for something to be viral? Texas Tootin'. Yeah, Texas Tootin' sends in a very generous super chat of $19.99. Says, hey, Dave, have you seen The Northman? No, but it is a movie I want to see. Absolute masterclass in filmmaking, excellent atmosphere and cinematography. Anyway, do you think if movies weren't so cookie cutter, we would get more experiences like that in other areas? Well, maybe. I do know that, really, I haven't seen the movie, but do you mean from a story perspective? Because when you look at The Northman, it's really The Lion King. Really, right? If anybody wants to complain about Avatar, Avatar's pulling out of space. Well, The Northman's the fucking Lion King. And Top Gun Maverick is Star Wars A New Hope. I mean, hey, you got to be fair to everything, right? I'm just talking about the basic foundation of the premise, right? You can draw parallels. So I'm not saying The Northman is the Lion King, but you can see the parallels. And the Lion King took from, you know what I mean? We tell this, in case you guys haven't noticed, we tell the same stories over and over again, just in different ways. And we've been doing that since the Stone Age, especially if they're cool stories that really work and work well. But I haven't seen The Northman, but I've seen the trailers and I've seen some clips. And yeah, the cinematography looks fantastic. It looks really, really cool. So yeah. I definitely want to see it. And do I think if movies weren't so cookie cutter, experience in other areas? Well, I think we do. There are other experiences out there. I understand what you're saying, but my answer would be that in show business, it's tough. I've said this before, but it's. And I'm not saying that this is the only reason, but I think this is a big part of it. With the internet today and social media, and we like to feel in our busy lives, our stressful lives, we like to feel comforted. We like to feel familiar. We like comfort food and we like comfort movies and stories. And So that's why a lot of the big blockbusters or things in your face will be recycled stuff we've seen before, because we continue to pay money into those things. We continue to go see those films. And because those big blockbusters cost, 150, 200, $250 million to make, production budget, and then you tack on another 100 mil they have to make like 300, 400 million to break even. The marketing campaigns behind these big shows and these big films are huge, and they are in your face, and they're on social media and TikTok and Twitter, the ads, the posters, the 30-second clips of this, the that, because they need to be in your face all the time. So you go see the movie and you tell your friends about the movie and all that kind of stuff, right? Whereas these smaller films, a movie that costs $5 million now, the Blumhouse model, that's different though. They are a major Hollywood production company. But the Blumhouse model is, of course, make a movie for $5 million, market the hell out of it, and make $100 million. It's a good model, but not everybody has the fortunes of being having a Blumhouse behind their backs, right? There's a lot of wonderful independent, to your point, there's a lot of wonderful non-cookie cutter independent films out there, not just in the horror genre, but in drama and sci-fi. Wonderful. just listen, I know there's a lot of garbage on Netflix, but every now and then I'll come across a movie that's like an independent film, that's like a sci-fi movie or whatever. And I'm like, this is fucking great. Like, this is really good. It's not too tropey. This is actually really good, but they don't have Blumhouse behind them. They don't have the marketing money and dollars behind them to put it in your face on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook every time you scroll, so yeah. So the bigger movies, the larger films, the more the comfort food films, and that's what Top Gun was. Right? That's what Top Gun was. That's what, I guess you could say that's what Avatar is, even though it's only got one movie. But yeah, Avatar would fall into that category, right? That's what Halloween is. That's what Friday the 13th is, all that kind of stuff. So they will always be in your face more. So I think it's in the same, I think your question is in the same area as why doesn't Hollywood make anything original anymore? They do. You're just not watching it because it's not in your face. You're just unaware of it. You've got to go searching for it. You got to search Prime. You got to search, Netflix. You got to search wherever, and they are out there. Like I watched a great horror movie. I've talked about this before. What's it now? No. Whispers in the I forget what it was called. Anyway, damn it. There's this movie that I saw on Netflix. It was a horror film. It was a slasher. It's a Canadian American film, I think. Actually, let me just click because I'm pretty sure that's. Oh, there it is. That's it. This is a movie I'd never heard of. It's from 2018. Now, if you've seen this movie and you don't like it and you think it's shit, that's fine. I'm just talking about me. It's called Ghostland, also known as Incident in a Ghostland. I believe it was written and directed by Pascal. I don't know how to say that in French, but I believe he's I thought it was a Canadian American film, but anyway, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's about these two young girls that are with their mom and they move to this house in the country, and then shit hits the fan, and there's like these intruders in there, and then it fast forwards to like 20 years later, and one of the girls is a successful novelist now, and she gets a phone call from her sister who still lives at that house, who's crazy, and the mom is still there, but things are not what they seem. There's an epic twist. I liked it. I actually thought and I think the reason, I don't think there's a twist in that movie I just didn't see coming. And I was like, oh, holy fuck. And then it makes total sense. I thought it was a really good film. maybe I think it's like, I mean, it's not the best horror movie I've ever seen in my life, but I think because I'd never heard of it, I didn't even know it existed. I saw it on Netflix, didn't know what it was like, what's this? Read the little blurb, was like, sounds interesting. Okay. Doesn't tell me much, but sounds interesting. I'm looking for a movie to watch. All right, Veda, come here. My cat, right? We settle in, we watch it. And I think because I had zero expectations, I didn't even know what the movie was about. Because you know those Netflix, those blurbs, I mean, they're who the fuck writes these things? They're just terrible. Some are better than others, and some are just like, it just tells me nothing. Like literally nothing. And so it was one of those. And I just watched it and took it as it is. And at the end, I was like, huh. Now, maybe if I go back and watch it again, I could dissect it, and maybe there's a plot hole, or maybe there's something that doesn't make sense, or why is she doing this when she should have done? Maybe that exists. But just at face value and watching it, I was like, huh, I never heard of it. It's an original. Now, again, it's original in the sense of that it's an original horror movie, in the sense of that, you know, it's not tied to a franchise or anything like that. It's not a sequel. There are movies like that exist out there. There are original films that exist. They're just not in your face every day like these big tentpole films, because they have to be, because they cost so much money to make, you know? So yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think that falls in I think we just got to search harder, man. I think we just got to search harder. Shorty G sends in $4.99. Thanks, buddy. And says, thanks for covering Scream 6, Dave. Excited to hear your thoughts. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I will. I'll cover it. You know, I will definitely, you know, when the movie comes out, I mean, I'm not, okay. So to be fair, keep in mind, I'm not a movie reviewer, right? So I don't review the latest and greatest films. So when the movie comes out in the movie theaters, don't expect me to suddenly start talking about it like that night or that weekend. I probably won't end up going to the theater to see it. I don't know what the theatrical window is. I have no idea if they're going to do like a 17-day thing or what. I'm not sure. It might take me a little bit to get to it. I don't know. Scream 5, we were fortunate because it was either a day and date, or they did like a couple of weeks in the theater, like a 17-day thing, and then it went to wherever it went. Can't remember now. But so Tony and I were able to do a watch along live, which was great. But I definitely will see it, and I definitely will give you my thoughts. Sebastian sends in $4.99, says, what's up, Mr. McRae? Love you. Well, what's not to love? Thank you. Sad I missed your last live stream. Was in government class. But I watched it. Okay, government class. Okay, all right. Coming from my taxes, are you? Do you think this ghost face is supernatural? No, I don't. I don't think that would be a leap that the Scream franchise would do. I think that's a little too much. That's completely removing the DNA. I'm all for taking risks, but it's changing the rules of the universe. No, I think that would be a mistake to do. So I don't think he's supernatural at all. I think he's very natural. Evan Heathcock sends in $10 and says, hey, Dave, and thank you very much. Says, hey, Dave, objectively, what do you consider the greatest horror movie of all time? I'd have to say either The Thing or The Shining, although Halloween is my personal favorite. Oh, dude, great question, but it's so tough to answer. Like, what are the variables, right? What are we measuring? You know, I always say that, you know, when somebody says, what do you think is the greatest this? Or what do you think is the greatest that? I say, well, what are we measuring? You know, I always use that story or a video I did, because I used to get asked it a lot when somebody said, you know, what do you think is the greatest horror house? You know, like the greatest house in all of horror. I used to get asked that a lot. I don't get it asked anymore because I did a video on this topic about 2 years ago, maybe. And I said, well, like, I understand the fun of just going, you know, what do you think the best is this or the best of that is or whatever. I get that. But what are we measuring? And so And there's many different ways you can measure. There's not one thing, right? Or one way. So I did a video where I said, okay, so what do I think is the best, or, you know, the most iconic house in all of horror? And I said, okay, well, what are we measuring? So I said, okay, well, the measuring stick is going to be that if I went out onto the street and asked random people and showed them photographs of the Myers house, the Myers house from the original film, the Myers house, the Elm Street house, the Amityville house, the Psycho house, I don't know, the house from the first Conjuring, you know what I mean? If I just went out on the street and showed people random photos of houses, what house do I think people would know instantly and recognize the most, right? It's not an exact science, but that's a measuring stick of determining what may be the most iconic house. And I came to, now I didn't actually test this. I didn't actually go out and do this. So this is just a theory. But based on the longevity and how long it's been around and how much it's in pop culture, I came to the conclusion that I think the Psycho house would win. I think the Myers house would be dead last. Because remember, we're not asking horror fans. We're asking random people on the street. So that's your Uncle Bob, your grandma, and your boss, Hank. So, you know, we're just asking random people. Like you go to Times Square, or you go to Dundas Square here in Toronto, which is like our Times Square. And, you know, you just ask random people. So, you know, you don't go up to people that look like they may be horror fans. No, you go up to just random people. Go up to the old lady sitting there chewing her gum. Go up to the guy, and you know what I mean? And there, look, you're going to get people that aren't going to recognize anything. But I believe, and again, it hasn't been tested yet, and it could depend on where you're testing it, right? What city you live in. I mean, there's all sorts of loopholes and things that you could poke at that, but it's, because it's not an exact science, you know, and you don't want to do it at a horror convention. That's the last fucking thing you want to do. And I just came to the conclusion, it's very circumstantial, that it would probably be the Psycho house. I think most people would recognize the Psycho house. I think the Myers house would be dead last. I think maybe the Amityville house would be next because of those iconic crescent moon shaped windows, which are no longer there, by the way. They've been gone for years. But I think maybe people would recognize that. Then maybe the Elm Street house, and then maybe the Myers house. Because the Myers house was really only in that first movie, right? And the Myers house, it's in part 2 as well, but barely. And then of course it changes from movie to movie. So it was never one look, you know, whereas the Psycho house and the Amityville house and the Elm Street house, although it did change its door from blue to red after the first movie, have stayed the same. But unlike, you know, the Psycho films and the Amityville films, the Myers house isn't really, I mean, you could say it is, but it's not like it's not real integral to Halloween. I mean, the Amityville house, it's all about the Amityville house, right? The Psycho house, I mean, Jesus, it's iconic, you know, it's right beside the Bates Motel. So getting back to your question, I look at that and I go, so what do I think is the greatest horror movie of all time? Well, what are we measuring? I don't know. Well, let's say maybe what I like the most. What always maybe has the most rewatch value for me. I don't know if I can pick just one, but certainly I agree with The Shining. I think The Shining is fantastic. I think The Others from 2001 with Nicole Kidman is a fantastic horror movie. I think Rear Window is great. Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. I think Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with Joan Crawford and Bette Davis is fantastic. The first Exorcist, I think, is great. The original Halloween, of course. You know, it's very hard for me to pick. Like, when somebody says, what do you think is the greatest horror film of all time? I really got to think about it, because now I'm thinking about mood. I'm thinking about atmosphere. I'm thinking about, you know, composition and story and, you know, all that kind of shit. I mean, there is an argument to be made that The Shining is up there, because when I think about everything, you know, composition, lens choices, mood, atmosphere, music, you know, the layers, you know, the use of symbolism and cinematic language. And I mean, you know, it's yeah, you know, it's a very tough question, but some of my favorites are, yeah, Halloween, Black Christmas, The Others, The First Elm Street, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Rear Window, you know, Rosemary's Baby. Those are some of my faves, man. There's so many. There's so many, Evan. There's so many. But thank you for the question, man. I really appreciate it. Static sends in $5, says, they posted a video about DNN on here, and they used your Freddy pick and titled it New Nightmare Elm Street Film Coming 2023. It got 100,000 views in 1 month. That's great. That's awesome. That's good to hear. And no surprise. No surprise. Listen, when Dylan's New Nightmare drops, it's going to outview It's Me, Billy in its first weekend, maybe even its first day, right? But that's just because of the popularity of the IP. Now, I'm not saying that Dylan's New Nightmare is not also going to be fantastic, of course, but it's Freddy fucking Krueger, right? And you got Miko Hughes involved as well, right? So yeah, it's gonna, I mean, you know, but that's no different than you see at box office with, you know, I mean, there's a reason why Halloween is going to outperform, you know, Barbarian. You know, there's a reason why Halloween is always going to outperform, you know, X or so, right? Well, look, it's because of the, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, that's awesome. That's really cool. I'll have to do a YouTube search. I haven't YouTubed. I know that Cosplay Chris did a video about it. Shout out to him. That's got over 300,000 views. Wolfman's Got Nards did one. I think it's got over 30,000, which is crazy. 30,000, 300,000. People love Freddy, man. They love Freddy. There's going to be some out there that will be very disappointed that it's just a fan film, but it's not just a fan film. All right, I think I got all the super chats. We got one coming in here from Vendez Cinema. I think I said that correctly. Sends in $4.99, says, Dave, it'll be cool if it's Stu's son. Also, has Stu in his head and also has Stu in his head like Billy's daughter. Imagine Stu and Billy share the same screen again, but in a different way. Yeah, listen, yes. I mean, there are people that really like the idea that I propose, and there are people that don't like it, and that's fair. I don't think, okay, if I was writing it, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, okay? I could change my mind the more I had to think about it. I'm just shooting from the hip. I think if I was writing it, I wouldn't do that, because that feels a little too like those cartoons where you have the devil and the angel on your shoulder. I don't know if I would also have Stu, I get what you're saying. I don't know if I would do that. I don't think we need Billy. I don't think we need Billy anymore. I think we understand now. Because it's already been established, we don't need to see. Now, she could still be seeing visions of her father, but because we've already done that in Scream 5, and it's been clearly communicated to the audience, we don't need to see that again, right? We've established that. So we understand that when she has a moment or something's happening, that's what's happening. We don't need to see him doing that anymore. So because you run the risk of it getting a little too, it was borderline sort of cheesy because I forget the actor's name now. Skeet Ulrich or whatever his name is. He's 25 years older. He looks good for his age, but he's 25 years older. And clearly that was a 25-year older Billy and not Billy when he died. Right? So, you don't want, I don't want to see, and Matthew Lillard, look, he's 25 years older. I don't think we need to see that. So if I was writing it, I'd be like, no, been there, done that. But I think what's cool is that whoever this is, let's just say that it is Stu's son. Okay, let's just, for the sake of argument, I think he's already gone. He's already made his choice. You know, it's like, Saw, make your choice. He's already gone. He's killing people. But Sam's on the edge, right? There is darkness in Sam. She's not a murderer, but she's on the edge. And I know people don't like this movie, even though I thought it was better than The Last Jedi. But, you know, you look at what they were trying to do with Rey in The Rise of Skywalker and how technically she's a Palpatine, right? She has darkness in her, but is she going to go or is she not going to go? Again, those themes are not exclusive to Star Wars, right? Those themes are themes throughout storytelling. I think it would be kind of cool if that was sort of an interesting angle where Sam is really struggling. Like, it's her father. Her father is one of the great notorious serial killers in history. You know, maybe she's dealing with shit in her life. Her life is not that together. Maybe she's struggling in college, or maybe she got out of a bad relationship. She's vulnerable, basically. She's in a vulnerable place. And this guy comes along at the right. Now, do I think they're actually going to take those risks? No. No, I don't. Because I think that, and it probably would be the right decision to make. Because I don't know, and I say this with all due respect, I don't know if the audience is maybe mature enough to start adding those types of layers. You know, I like it because it's more than just a Scream movie. That's why I'm like, oh, don't make it Kirby. You know, so okay, it's Kirby. You know, I didn't see that coming. You know, it's like, no, let's, you know, if you're going to move it to New York and you're going to push this thing forward, let's take some risks. But I do understand that could be something like, Stu's son, Sam dealing with darkness, coming to get her. I don't know if you want to do that. I understand it. I can totally get it. I totally get it. But there's something attractive about that idea for me, because I like that kind of thing. It's not just another Scream movie. It's Billy's daughter. It's fucking Billy's daughter that is dealing with this darkness. It's fascinating. You know what I mean? It adds some weight to the character, some stakes to her decisions. You know, will she, won't she? Is she or isn't she? You know, what's going on here? Is she the killer? What the fuck, right? And then you bring Stu's son or whatever the case is. I thought I heard my cat. Whatever the case is, right? And there's an interesting poetry there, right? Their fathers were the OGs. Their fathers were the ones that got it started, you know? And it's like, wow, it's cool, you know, or whatever. And again, you could write it and have it fail, but if you had really smart writing and it was really justified, I guarantee you that fans would go, that was actually kind of cool. That actually was wow. Because you're raising, and the performances were solid and the stakes were high. You know what I mean? And then maybe the movie ends on a cliffhanger, like Tony Michael said. I got to give him credit because it was his idea. We've never seen a Scream movie end on a cliffhanger. We've never seen a Scream movie end on a cliffhanger. You know, every movie is always wrapped up nicely. We know who the killer is. What if Scream 6 ends and we don't know who the killer is? What the fuck? Or maybe that shot of Sam in the trailer when she's holding the mask, if you look closely, her hands are bloody. She's holding the mask in like a bag. It's the tattered mask. What's she thinking? Is that the final shot of the film? Is she thinking, hey, what's going on? I like that kind of shit. We've never had that in a Scream movie because every Scream movie ends with you knowing who the killer is. It's wrapped up and that's it. You know, it's not like they don't end on cliffhangers. You know, they're complete stories in and of themselves. So yeah, I would be okay with entertaining a draft where that was the case. And maybe we can noodle it and massage it and make it work. I don't know. But I understand the reservation. I do. I get it. I totally get it. And maybe because I'm not so emotionally attached to the Scream franchise that I'm more willing to want to take that kind of risk. That's always possible too. It's always possible too. All right. Did I get all the super chats? I saw Frank and his face is there. No, okay. He's talking about something else. Thank you, Frank. Oh, wait. Yeah, so that was that. So I did get all the super chats. so far, right? I think so. I think I did. Oh, there's that Iron Maiden thing. Fucking love it. It's great. There we are. All right. How are we doing for time? How are we doing for time on this Friday night? Oh, we're good. We're good. Let's keep going. Let's get some non-super chats in here. Bobby Hall. Hey, Bobby. Says, Dave, do you think H18 makes it clear that Michael didn't care about Laurie? If so, do you think H18 still works as an ending to Laurie's story, even though she doesn't find out it wasn't about her? Yes. Well, make it clear. Let's just say that it doesn't do anything to make it seem like he is chasing Laurie. That's one of the things they had to compete with, right? Is the brother-sister arc is so embedded into the pop culture zeitgeist that, you know, there were people that watched there were people that watched there were people that watched H18 and were like, what the fuck? I thought they were brother and sister. I mean, not hardcore fans like us, but there were. Yes, I do. The only thing I would, and although you don't have to do this, but because the internet takes everything so literally, it might be in your best interest to remove it. But you don't have to. Let people stew and think, you know, what they want. I was going to say that maybe you remove the breathing at the end of the credits, but you know what? You don't have to, because if you look at it metaphorically rather than literally, then it works, right? You know, it's supposed to be. It's not saying that he's actually alive. It's saying that, listen, maybe he's dead, but evil will always live on. The boogeyman will always live on in somebody else. But you will absolutely have hardcore Halloween fans that won't do that won't see beyond that won't think that deeply and think that it means literally he's alive, when it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. So like when I heard the breathing at the end, it didn't surprise me, but I didn't immediately think he was alive. I thought, oh, maybe they're just, you know, because we didn't know if they were going to do another one. No, I think you could take it. I don't think they do anything catastrophic in the, I don't think they do anything catastrophic in the movie that would lead people to believe that Michael was following her. Now, maybe there's some casual fans that might think that because they end up together. But if you're paying attention, the Dr. Sartain moment aside, you know, it's very clear how he gets to her. He's not chasing her, you know, he gets to her because he's practically driven there, you know, so... You know, and you didn't need the Sartain thing at all. I mean, all Michael had to do really was chase Allison through the woods. And you could have had a terrific scene in that woods with moonlight shining down, the tree trunks of the trees, the moonlight shining on the trees. Allison trips, she falls, she skins her knee, little cliche, but it totally works. It's a Halloween movie after all. It's fucking Halloween. Come on. You know, she's hurt, she's limping, she's hiding behind a tree trunk that's wide enough to cover her. Moonlight is cascading down. You see his mask in the distance because the white mask, although it's a bit weathered, still at night, it kind of picks up on the light and stuff like that, you know, you could have a really nice chase scene there. And then he's not after her because it's Laurie's granddaughter. He doesn't know that. And he doesn't know that she's running to Laurie's house, which she did anyway, but I think you know what I mean. I would have had him follow her through there. And then maybe it becomes more clear that he ends up at the house because of the chase. But no, I don't think so. I think you could have left it. And I think that's why they ended it the way they did. And I think I expect and I anticipate to see a similar ending to The Exorcist remake as well that's coming down the pipe. I expect to see a similar ending. They spent a lot of money, a lot of cheddar on the rights for 3, but they're not making 3 because they don't even know if the first one's going to be a success. And if the first one is a catastrophic failure, which it won't be, because I'm pretty sure The Exorcist budget can't be any more than 15 to 20 mil. Maybe it's a bit more, but it's certainly not. It's not like it's $100 million, right? I think The Exorcist, because of the time of year that it's going to be released, because of the IP, I think it will do well. Halloween well? No, but I think it will do well. But I anticipate that you'll see a similar ending where, yeah, it ends and you don't have to make another one, but you totally could make another one. Because that's kind of how 18 ended, right? Because they didn't know what it was going to be like. So they ended it like that. Michael died in the fire. Oh, did he? It could be taken both ways. He didn't, or it's just a metaphorical thing. It's symbolism, right? It's just, he's still out there, you know? So yeah, that's my thoughts. Chad Powers sends in $2. Thanks, Chad. And says, is Halloween Ends elevated horror? No, Halloween Ends is not elevated horror. So just because you have a psychological component, which is what that would be, about this kid, this downfall, the things he's dealing with. No, I mean, if you compare that to the rest of the Halloween series, I could see maybe saying that it's the most elevated out of the, in comparison to Halloween films. But when you compare it to actual elevated horror like Hereditary or something like that, no, there aren't the layers. It's not that smart there. So no, it would not be. The horror noobs, says, Dave, do you think a new Friday the 13th movie would be better suited as a direct sequel to the OG films? Like Part 4, for example. I think another reboot would lose people, especially after a 15-year hiatus. Nah, it won't. Are you kidding? It won't. I mean, that's basically what they're doing with Crystal Lake. I mean, you see, okay, like, to be fair, we don't know for sure. My understanding is that it's a prequel series that is before the events of the 1980 movie, but it's not related to the 1980 film. I don't think they can do that. I think one of the reasons why they're able to actually have the rights to everything is because it's strictly television. So I expect to see, but I don't know. I mean, are they structuring the series in a way that it's going to run for like 3 or 4 seasons and then the whole show will end and the sequel to that show is the 1980 film? Maybe that's how they're doing it. I don't know. Or are they starting with season 1, which will be like, 1974? I don't know, maybe showing Jason's drowning, showing Pamela Voorhees as a cook at the camp. And we follow all the way that for season 1. And then season 2 is like the 1980 story. And then season 3 is like the part 2 story. Like, are they telling the Friday the 13th stories again, but in season format? Maybe that's what they're doing. No, obviously they can't carbon copy because, they have to kind of do their own thing, be inspired by. But I don't know, man. I mean, I understand people don't want to reboot, but I mean, news came down the pipe today. We were talking about it at the start of the show that Sean S. Cunningham is in development on doing a direct sequel to the 1980 Friday the 13th, which he can do because he has the rights to that, as far as I know. Victor Miller has the rights to certain things about it, but that's the movie he directed, so that doesn't surprise me. What's that going to be like? Is that going to get any traction? I have no idea. If it were up to me, I would either reboot it and tell the Pamela Voorhees story. And I know that people don't like to hear that because it's got to be Jason. Listen, if it's done right and it's done well with great characters and great storytelling and great world building, you're not going to fucking care. You're not going to care because you're going to be so enamored and so into the story with the anticipation of where it's leading, because we all know where it's leading. We know that it's leading to the drowning and to Jason coming back and trying to avenge his mother's death forever. We know that's where we're going. So if the story is really good and the characters are great and everything, that's not going to matter. You'll be fucking into it, whether that's in television form or film form. In television, it's easier to do that because you have more time, you have more breathing room, you can draw it out over episodes. I mean, if one episode is an hour and you've got 7 episodes, that's like a 7-hour fucking movie. That's like 5 Friday the 13th movies. Not quite, but you know what I mean? So, well, maybe. Because if they're 90 minutes each, 90, close, very close. So maybe that's better suited for streaming, for television. But it doesn't surprise me that Cunningham wants to do that. I'm not as emotionally attached to Friday the 13th like I am Halloween. But looking at it as objectively as I can, I understand that fans don't want to reboot because they don't want to start again. But I can tell you right now, they're not going to do a sequel to Friday the 13th 09. They're not going to do that. That's dead, guys. It's gone. It's done. I will be shocked and stunned if we hear that we're going to do a direct sequel to what? Excuse me, Friday the 13th 09. If I said part 9, I meant Friday the 13th 2009. They're not going to do that. It's gone. It's gone. It's done. It's gone. Maybe it is gone. It's gone. So you're going to get a reboot remake of some kind. Now, whether that's a direct sequel to 4 maybe, or to 2, like what Sean wants to do, or I don't know. Or it's a prequel going back before the 1980 movie. It's something, right? It's something that it's some sort of reboot. Not necessarily a remake, because remember, remakes are always reboots, right? When you remake something, it's always a reboot because you're rebooting and you're starting over again, right? But not all reboots are remakes, right? So you can reboot something and have it be a sequel. So I don't know what they're going to do. I have no idea what they're going to do. There's a lot of chatter right now and a lot of different stuff. And until we have more info on what this Crystal Lake series is going to be like and what exactly the trajectory and the direction is for it, it's hard to say. But I actually really like the idea of going back and telling the Pamela story because I think there's so much untapped potential. You can really elevate and raise, and I don't mean elevate in that sense, snobby elevated horror. I don't mean that. I mean elevate the character. There's so much. I mean, who is this woman? Who is she? Where is she from? I mean, I know there's comics and shit like that, but I mean like real diving into it. And the backstory and what she went through with, his father and who is Jason and how she's, how that bond between mother and son really develop that and really make it count. So when you get to the inevitable stuff that all fans want to get to, it just makes it that much more meaningful and the stakes are higher then, right? So yeah. Edward Nito sends in a very generous super chat of $20. Thank you, Edward. Really appreciate that, man. Says, and I love your avatar. Godzilla 1985. Yeah. Still one of the best looking, still in my opinion, the best looking Godzilla. Although I do quite like the new, Warner Brothers. It's Warner Brothers, right? Yeah. The new MonsterVerse Godzilla. I do actually quite like it. Edwardito sends in $20, says, what's up, Dave? I used to think that daylight meant safety in horror movies. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre changed that when Kurt and Pam, I used to think that, oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. For whatever reason, I was thinking about like daylight balanced light and, tungsten balance. I was thinking, sorry, take off that hat. Put it somewhere else. What's up, Dave? Let me try again. What's up, Dave? I used to think that daylight meant safety in horror movies. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre changed that when Kurt and Pam were killed. What's your thoughts on kills taking place during the day in horror movies? I don't mind it, but it's all in how the shot and the scene is crafted, right? I think when you are shooting during the day, a death scene during the day can work, but it depends. What do we mean by daylight? Do we mean broad daylight, like out and about in the sunshine? Or do we mean just during the day? Because if it's just during the day, well, you can have, we don't, generally speaking, you don't have your lights on during the day when you're at home, right? So there's natural daylight just kind of seeping in through the windows. Now, obviously, you would have like a 5K light or whatever outside, shining light, pretending to be, you'd have to light it. But you could get some real nice streaks of light coming through that's supposed to be sunshine, and or not even like 5K, maybe it's too much, but even like a sky panel, just put that out there, have some nice daylight coming through, where it's supposed to be just kind of like the ambient light from outside, but inside is kind of, it's that inside your house during the day kind of look, right? So the lights, but it's kind of moody a little bit, right? Depending on how you shoot it, how you craft the light, where you put the camera and all that kind of stuff. And you could have a really effective scene, very moody, very atmospheric. Mood and atmosphere is strongly associated, obviously and understandably so, with nighttime, foggy, all that kind of stuff. But you can create great mood and atmosphere during the day. It's more difficult to do in horror movies if we're talking about bright blue sky and sunshine on a golf course. Yeah, it's more difficult to do because of the association, and to your point, because of the association of safety and it not happening. However, there are examples, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are examples where there have been effective death scenes and kills in daylight, in sunshine. So it can happen. It can happen. Traditionally, you see it the other way because of the association, right? The psychological association that that we as viewers have. So if you want to scare your audience and you want to build that tension and that suspense, then you're probably better to do that in a dimly lit environment or at night in the darkness, just because of the association of it. But yeah, there are films that do sort of suppress that expectation, where it's daylight, maybe the sun's shining, but there's holy shit, and yeah, it can work. But is it as effective? Generally, probably not. Like overall, probably not because of that. But yeah, no, it can, and it's it can be effective for sure. Coming up to the 2-hour mark on this Friday. Okay, did I miss any other didn't see any other super chats come in. No. Okay. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. David Irwin says, guys, I just popped back in to tell you there's new Friday the 13th updates on Bloody Disgusting. Yeah, we were just talking about that, David. Sean S. Cunningham, of course, he's talking about rebooting and remaking House. One of my favorite horror films, horror comedies, I guess, really, from the 80s for sure. George Wendt. Norm. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I'm sure I was gonna say we got this covered. Epic fail. I meant we watched a movie. Mike over at We Watched a Movie. I have no doubt we'll be jumping on that like a fat kid on a Smartie, I think the saying was, for sure. And we'll be talking about it here too. I just want a little more sort of meat before I dive into it. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Curious. Very curious. Super chat comes in from Anthony T. Thanks, Anthony. Sends in $5. Says, funny games. Most or all is... Funny Games, sorry, a movie called Funny Games. I'm not familiar with this. Most or all is during the day, and it's one of the scariest films with mood, atmosphere, and tension. Well, I will have to check it out. Maybe it's one of those movies I have seen, but I don't recall it. There are, to your point, there are movies out there that do a really good job at crafting effective suspense and atmosphere and tension during the day. Traditionally, it will always be, of course, the other way around for obvious reasons, right? There's a reason why the saying is things that go bump in the night and not things that go bump in the sunshine. All right, we'll go for a little bit longer here. I'm just looking for something. I asked somebody. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, what are some of your worst remakes besides Rob Zombie's Halloween movies? And I'm looking forward to DNN. And also, I want to thank you for the condolences for me and my family. You are welcome, Chester. I hope everything is okay on your end. Some of the worst remakes. I don't know. Some of the worst remakes. Like remakes, like an actual remake. Well, I mean, Black Christmas 2019. There you go right there. Oh, man. Black Christmas 2019. It is painful. Painful. And I say this every time I talk about Black Christmas 19 because I think it's an important point. I could sit here and rip into the wokeness and all, and it is, no doubt about it. It's, you know, it's a political message with a movie attached to it. It's, you know, and they don't shy away from that. I mean, even the producers are like, yeah, that's what we're doing. I mean, not that, but saying that, yeah, like what, yes, we are being on the nose. Yes. I think what frustrates me about that is I don't know Sophia Takal. I don't know April Wolf. Sophia Takal is the director. April Wolf obviously was the co-writer. It frustrates me as an actor, as an artist, as a filmmaker. It frustrates me that, you know, if you're really passionate about this story, I think that's awesome. It might not be a movie I'm passionate about or a story that I'm passionate about. But it frustrates me because any good that story may have had gets lost in translation because you put, and this isn't her fault, but Blumhouse wanted to do a Black Christmas remake. That movie, and I'm not saying the film would have succeeded if it wasn't called that, but if the movie was just called Slay Girls, which was one of the subtitles, right? Slay, S-L-A-Y. There was a poster that came out where it said Slay Girls and they were all standing there. And then in like small print, it was like Black Christmas. It's great. Just call it that. Because there's nothing about that movie that even, it's not even, I mean, Black Christmas 06, there's another remake that I think is but even that is more of a, I mean, at least that, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I was so disappointed. I was disappointed on many levels, not just as a Black Christmas fan, not just as somebody that is, you know, doesn't want to be spoon-fed and beaten over the head with, you know, some sort of message, especially one that is preachy and condescending, in my opinion. But as an artist, I look at this and I go, what did it do for April Wolf and Sophia Takal? I mean, Jesus Christ, you're doing a Blumhouse movie. I'd give my right fucking leg to be in that position. Yeah, any filmmaker would be, especially like oh my God, I'm doing a Blumhouse film? Yes! You know, and what has it done? Mocked. It was mocked. It was bashed. I think because it was Black Christmas. If it had been a different movie, people would have watched it and would have been like, it's kind of woke. You know, they're kind of beating on men here. But it wouldn't have been so intrusive and offensive, I think. But I think it became so offensive because it's like, what are you doing? This isn't Black Christmas. Like, there's nothing wrong with making it your own or, you know, changing. Okay. But, I mean, you get the rights to Black Christmas and this is what you do? You know? We don't have the rights to Black Christmas, and we spent $60,000 and look what we did. And we still are going to continue and complete it. Right? It's frustrating because I don't know, but I don't think it did anything for Sophia Takal or April Wolf's career. Like, have they done another Blumhouse movie? Now, to be fair, it also didn't do very well at the box office either. So Jason Blum may not be rushing out to, hey, let's do another one. But, you know, it's unfortunate because she's a female director and that's cool, man. And I think we do need more female directors directing horror. Yes, absolutely. Count me in. But I think it felt like it was just done to serve that, you know? Now, maybe Sophia Takal and April Wolf knew it. Maybe they were not under any illusions. Maybe they knew it. Maybe they knew. Maybe they knew. Maybe they did. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating. So that's a remake that I don't like. See here. Voice of Gordy sends in $9.99. Thank you, Voice of Gordy. Says, hopefully you had a good Friday the 13th last week. I did. It was pretty good. I watched part 4. Oh, yeah. Love that part 4. I watched part 4, and my dog Gordon is named after the Jarvis dog in the movie. Very cool. He is a boxer dog and will not jump through a window if faced by Jason. That's really cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, boxers can be really cute. All dogs are cute. I mean, listen, there's some that are kind of, you know, well, there's some dogs that are kind of ugly, but they're really cute because they're ugly. You know what I mean? I love dogs. And of course I have a cat, Veda. I love cats. I'm a cat guy. I'm a cat person. I admit I'm a cat. I'm not, yeah, I admit I'm a cat. I'm a cat guy. That's really cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Friday the 13th part 4 is certainly, I think I've mentioned this before, but when I watch the Friday the 13th series, that's like, when I think of Friday the 13th, that's the when I think of Jason from Friday the 13th, I will always think of Richard Brooker and Ted White, and Steve Dash and Gillette. I forget his first name now. Nick Gillette? I will always think of those guys. Basically, I will always think of Sackhead 3 and 4. I mean, no disrespect to Kane Hodder. Of course, he's iconic, and I hear he's, an awesome dude. But I think by the time he came around in 1987 or 8, I think it was, I was sort of not out of my Friday the 13th phase, but I was 9 and I was kind of, watching other horror stuff. My Friday the 13th phase came when I was like 4 and 5 and 6, when there were only like 3 or 4 Friday the 13th movies. But it's nostalgia too. Like that's what I was first introduced to. That's my Jason. So that's what I think of. I think, and of course, in terms of the series, if I'm going to pop in a Friday the 13th movie, it will always be probably 1 through 5. Every now and then I'll pop in 6, but to me, I think of Friday the 13th as like 1 to 4, 1 to 5. That's cool, man. Well, shout out to your dog, Jordy. Is it Jordy or Gordy? Oh, excuse me. No, Jordan. No, Gordon. Did I say Gordy? No, I said voice. Did I say Jordy or Gordy? It's Gordy, right? Or is it Jordy? I've seen that spelled and pronounced 2 different ways. Well, shout out to Voice of Gordy and Voice of Jordy and the dog Gordon. It's probably Gordon. It's not, yeah, because the dog in Friday 4 is Gordon, right? Yeah. So I got that right. Whew. It's a good thing we solved that, ladies and gentlemen. It's a good thing we solved that. Matthew Farisi just sends in $1.99 supporting the channel. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that very much. Appreciate that. Let me see here. Oliver Mercer says, I'll say Psycho 1998 as another god-awful remake. Yeah, Psycho. Oh, shout out to Anne Heche, of course, passed away a few months ago. I liked Anne Heche. And then, of course, one of Vince Vaughn's first appearances. I watched that movie when it came out. I don't remember. I know it's like a shot-for-shot remake. I haven't seen it in years. It was on Netflix a little while ago. Maybe it's still there. I was going to watch it, actually. But I haven't seen it in years. But yeah, I know it's notoriously known as horrendous because of that. That's a good one, Oliver. Let's see here. Evil Monsterism says, hey, Dave, how do you think Halloween would have been different if they gave Myers some elaborate, weird, and complicated mask instead of the spray-painted, simple Shatner mask? I don't know. Obviously the look would have been different, but if everything else remained the same, then there's probably the same music, the same shots behind the bush, all that kind of stuff. It's possible that it could have still taken off. But that mask is so effective because it is a human face. So it's psychologically for the audience, we can identify, again, you don't think about these things consciously, but we are identifying, it's very eerie. It's almost an uncanny valley, not quite, but it's in that sort of realm. So I think the human face, the pale, blank, emotionless face works really well. And there's no doubt that it was a huge part of the allure of the character. Had it just been the, Emmett Kelly clown mask, which it was almost, which is a creepy mask, the sad sack mask. It's creepy. Maybe. It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe the character wouldn't have resonated as much with the audience. That's entirely possible. Bobby Hall says, Dave, what I meant regarding H-18 as an ending to Laurie's story is that she still thought Michael was obsessed with her, so her character arc in realizing it wasn't about her was complete. I see what you're saying. So, well, we don't have a moment in the movie where she realizes that. So to your point, no, it wouldn't have been, that realization didn't come until Halloween Kills. So, but at that point, does it matter? I'm just thinking of Halloween 18 and it's like, at that point, does it matter at that point? I don't know. But you're right. No, at no point does anybody say anything to her about that. I don't think anyway. It's been a little bit since I've watched it. But no, I think the movie would have come and gone and we just would have, Michael's dead, and Laurie would have just assumed that, yeah, I guess he was after her. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But that would have been it. That just would have been, that doesn't mean he was. Then I think it falls into the realm, like when you watch the movie, then I think it would become very clear that Michael, like it's very clear to us that Michael isn't following her, but Laurie doesn't know that. So now it becomes more about understanding that Laurie's obsession with Michael, doesn't matter now. I mean, it's more philosophical, isn't it? When you think about it. She killed him thinking he was after her. Almost like she manifested its reality because she was so obsessed. But it doesn't matter because it was a competently made film. Good movie, fine. Ends, he's dead, fire, music. Yeah, it doesn't bear any weight. Like it doesn't feel that things were left unanswered. Not to me anyway. I mean, again, I'd have to watch the movie from that perspective and with that context and see. Let me see here. Did I get the super chat? Last one was from Matthew Freese, right?
Was the last one from Matthew Freese? I think the last one was from Matthew.
I think it was anyway. Dream Villain. Dave, do you think they could make a My Bloody Valentine franchise, seeing as though they've made a franchise with every other popular season today? I don't know. Maybe. How many Bloody Valentine movies have there been? I don't know off the top of my head. Was there a remake? Wasn't there? There's the original. It's a Canadian movie, by the way, I think. Anyway, Canadian movie? I think it's a Canadian movie. My Bloody Valentine. A Canadian horror film. And were there any sequels to it? I can't remember. I know that, I'm pretty sure there was a remake. I'm pretty sure there was a remake. Frank says, are you sure you got Harsh Language Podcast Super Chat? Harsh Language Podcast Super Chat. Thank you, Frank. Let me go back. Thank you, Frank. It must have been a little while ago. Okay, let me just go back. Was that the name of the channel? I will get back to your thing here in a second. I just want to make sure I didn't miss this. No. That's what I want. No, Jesus, they're changing everything around here. Okay. No, I did not get it. I did not see it. Thank you, Frank. So I will get that in just a second here. So yeah, My Bloody Valentine, Bobby Hall says the original Bloody Valentine was pretty cool. Yeah, it was. It's beloved. When I say beloved, you know what I mean? It's most people like it, I think. I don't know. My Bloody Valentine remake. There was a remake, right? Yeah, the remake in 3D. That's right. 2009 remake. Mr. Horror Junkie 78 says the 2009 remake was. That's right. My Bloody Valentine 3D. I remember that. Never saw it. I've seen the original, but not in a long time. I don't know. I'd have to look at the box office numbers for 3D, for My Bloody Valentine 3D. And kind of gain a pulse. I don't know. I think that's likely to be something that would probably just go to streaming. I don't think that's something that would be a theatrically released movie. I don't think it's in the pop culture zeitgeist enough to warrant that. I mean, Jesus Christ, you got Chucky going to, Chucky and Friday the 13th are now going to streaming. So I think if they're going to streaming, and there will come a time when we won't look so, there will, and it's already begun. There will come a time when streaming won't be looked at so much as like the direct to video thing. Streaming is already well on its way to being the future. I hope that the theatrical experience doesn't die. And certainly if you have a $200 million movie, that is still where you make your most bucks. But My Bloody Valentine, theatrically released movie, don't see it. Streaming movie? Yeah, maybe. All right. The Super Chat. Just tuning in. This is the Harsh Language Podcast, sends in $5. Thank you. Says, just tuning in. Sorry if you were asked already, but any thoughts on The Last of Us or plans to check it out? Well, I haven't seen it. I don't have any immediate plans. The reason is not because I don't think I hear great things, but I've never played the video game. I'm not a gamer. Like what would be considered a gamer, right? Like I have, a PS4 and I want to get the PS5 and I like playing my, my NHL hockey. What a shock. I'm a Canadian, and I like playing Grand Theft Auto. I think that's kind of fun, but I'm not a gamer. Like I don't buy games and all that. I'm not on fucking line playing games. So I've never played The Last of Us. I don't know what it's about. I have a vague idea because of the show now. But I hear from people who, don't know anything about it, are loving it just based on that it's a really great story with great characters. The first episode was really good. In great drama and stakes and effects and I think that's great. So I'm not saying that because I haven't played the game, therefore I shouldn't watch the show. I'm not saying that. I'm saying because I haven't played the game, the motivation to check out the show is not at the top of my list. So I haven't, but I hear great things and I definitely want to check it out for sure. I definitely want to check it out. I just don't know when that will be. All right. Didn't miss any others. Did I, Frank? I don't think so. All right. Let's take this thing to another 10 minutes or so. That'll take us to 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Sebastian says, Dave, what are your thoughts on The Exorcist 2? I'm new to the franchise and I just saw the first for the first time. I'm 18. So should I skip it and watch Exorcist 3 or watch them all in order? Well, I would skip The Exorcist 2. I mean, listen, you can check it out if you want. It is canon. It's not a very good sequel. It's got Linda Blair in it. She reprises her role. But The Exorcist 3, or better known as Legion, is a far better film. And more in line with the tone of the... Now, it's a different story, okay? So Linda Blair is not in part 3. You're not following Reagan or her mother. It's a different story. Each Exorcist movie, well, I guess apart from The Heretic, obviously, which has Linda Blair in it, but The Exorcist 3, Legion, is based on the 3 books that Blatty wrote that were in the Exorcist universe. So the three faith books, as he calls them, are The Exorcist, The Ninth Configuration, and Legion. And those three books, which were also turned into films, obviously, with The Exorcist. The Ninth Configuration was a movie, I believe, from 1980, directed by Blatty. And Legion, starring George C. Scott, came out in like 1990 or something. And that was also directed by Blatty as well, the author of the books. They're separate stories, not following The Exorcist, but they take place within the Exorcist universe. So they are sequels for all intents and purposes. And there are callbacks, especially in Legion, you do see some strong connections there. I would either watch The Heretic for shits and giggles because, why not? But lower your expectations massively. Or I would just jump right to Legion, or I would or see if you can get your hands on the Ninth Configuration and watch that. Now that's a bit of a different, it's a bit different. But really in reality, if you just want to make it simple, just go to The Exorcist 3. It is the true sequel to The Exorcist. Don't worry about that it's called 3, and if you don't watch 2, you're not going to miss fucking shit. You're not going to miss shit. So just watch, go to Legion. And I believe it's free on YouTube. If you type in The Exorcist 3, the whole movie in really good quality is free on YouTube. Just saying. Wayne Turner says, lucky me, I will get to see Scream 6 a few days early here in Sydney, Australia, before the USA. Ooh, Wayne, you son of a bitch, Wayne. You goddamn son. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. A few more minutes left in the show, folks. A few more minutes left in the show. It's been a good show. 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Been a good show. Will I go 3 hours? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I will. See how I feel in 5 minutes. My back's starting to hurt. Let me see. Let's get some questions. Looking for some questions. The Horror Noobs again says, Dave, there are people who believe James Cameron bought the tickets to Avatar: The Way of Water simply because they haven't seen people talking about the movie. Why do people hate Avatar so much? Oh, I've talked about this so much. Listen, I'll make this simple. There are people that genuinely don't like Avatar. And I mean, genuinely don't like it. It just didn't work for them. Didn't like it. It was okay. Nah, whatever. Didn't like it. That's fine. But those people generally, are not online talking about how much they hate it because they don't care. I mean, there's so many movies I've seen in my life and I'm like, that I don't care if other people like it. I don't care if people talk about it. I don't go on and I don't care. So, and then there are people, because we live in the groupthink confirmation bias world, that like to glom on and be a part of something and like to get told how to think and what to believe. And they just hate Avatar. Look, let me really, really simplify this. Those that hate Avatar hate it because it's the most successful movie in the history of motion pictures. That's why. If it wasn't the most successful movie in the history of motion pictures, you wouldn't see the vitriol and the hatred for Avatar. If Avatar, the very first one, made $1 billion at the box office, the hatred would not be there. And part of the reason why there is this hatred for it, what has perpetuated it, what the catalyst is, and I speak generally, this association between box office and good movie. Just because a movie makes a lot of money at the box office doesn't automatically mean it's a good movie. It just means a lot of people went to see it. The question is, how many of those people that went to see it liked it? Now, can box office receipts be a measurement of quality? It can. It can be, especially when you start small, there's word of mouth, repeat viewings, you judge sort of the pulse of the, absolutely. But it doesn't automatically mean that. And I think the general movie, these people that glom onto this, the people that you see in the comments going, Pocahontas for the 900th time, it's just Pocahontas. They don't understand. I mean, I'm not saying they don't understand it, but they're not thinking about it in the same ways that we are. So they see Avatar, that movie made 2.7 at the time. Now it's 2.9, but 2.7, that movie, because they don't understand. They don't understand the why. They don't understand the why. And if they do, well, then they're just ignoring it, right? Nobody had seen anything like it. It was a cultural experience. It's not about the story. Even James Cameron himself would not say that Avatar is an amazing story. No, it's a classical story. Is it a theme park ride and the adventure and the effects? Yes. It's not. Avatar knows exactly what it is. James Cameron knows exactly what Avatar is. It's an experience. It was an event film. And it was fun. It was a ride. It was fun. Right? And it spread, and you gotta go check this out. It's amazing. Boy, it's a fucking... And that's what it was, and that's why it became the highest grossing movie of all time. That's why. Nobody is saying it's the... No, I haven't heard anybody say, it's the highest grossing movie of all time because of those deep-seated themes and those the drama and the feeling of the writing and those characters. Oh my God. The depth and the layers of those characters are just, no, of course not. Of course not. That's why. Because it's the highest grossing movie of all time, and there's a large portion of people that just don't understand why. And they glom onto the group thinking the buzzwords and just recycle the same shit over again. We know exactly why. And I'm an unabashed Avatar fan. I love Avatar for that exact reason. It's a classic. I've seen the story before, but I've never seen it told like this before. And that's what you get, right? We've seen those things before. I was talking about earlier that The Northman is basically The Lion King. I mean, we've seen this movie before, but not like this. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes classical stories, when they're told really well against the backdrop of an incredible world, it's fun. It's fun. It's amazing. And the technology, and it's like, holy fuck, nobody had ever seen anything like it. It's incredible. It was incredible. So, but that's why. Really, to really simplify, that's why. Because people, whether they and again, not everybody, I'm not saying everybody, but there's a large portion of the haters, I believe, that are hating on it because subconsciously they don't realize the why. They're perplexed, they're dumbfounded. Why is this the highest? They just don't get it. It's like, and that's what you get. And look at this. Avatar: The Way of Water is about to cross $2 billion. I don't get it. I do. Don't you? It's fucking amazing. We know what. That doesn't mean that all those people loved it, but nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that it's the best movie of all time. They're just saying it's the highest grossing movie of all time. It's not. This is not hard. Not a lot of verbal clutter there. Anyway. See what happens when you get me going on Avatar? Bobby Hall, I love it. Cameron should call the next one Avatar 3, Pocahontas in Spain. I love it. That would be amazing. And listen, if he, well, obviously if he could get away with like an April Fool's marketing thing, listen, you know what? The official poster for Avatar 3 is dropping tomorrow. It happens to be April 1st. And he drops it and it's like, and it says that. Oh man, that'd be funny. That'd be so funny. And you know that somebody out there would be like, what? Come on. Somebody would believe it too. Somebody would totally believe it. All right, folks. Yeah, my back's starting to hurt a little bit. Folks, it is 2.5 hours in. We're going to call it a day or a night or an evening there. This has been a lot of fun. This was a great show. Thank you to my amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all the super chat questions that came in today. I appreciate that as well. A reminder to my level 3 patrons, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, the movie hour. So don't forget that. I'll put up the link for my patrons tomorrow morning. Thank you. Yeah, again, to the super chats. Really appreciate it. To the non-super chats that we were able to get to today. That was a lot of fun. You are amazing. Thanks, each and every one of you, for tuning in and just hanging out with me and just talking movies and horror and just sharing in our love and our passion for movies. I really, really appreciate it. I think you guys are awesome. If you want to follow me on social media and you're not, and you haven't yet, fuck you doing? There are my links right there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. And I will talk to you soon. Alrighty. Cheers.